It's confirmed. Millennials are smarter than any generation. A new study shows that over 23% of Americans are actually now invested into cryptocurrency. 66% of that investment is actually all in Bitcoin. And 44% of all that crypto is owned by millennials. Now, there's surveys that say roughly there's about 100 million people invested into crypto. So right now I'm going to trust that TikTok does its thing, but to the 1.1 billion people this is about to send to on their For You page, listen up, because this is why crypto is so important. There is a very horrific scenario looking over our current financial monetary system, and we are about to see the greatest transfer of wealth of all time. Right now, our U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen is warning the Congress on the debt limit. Now, the debt limit or debt ceiling is the maximum amount of money that the United States can borrow by issuing bonds. And the problem with this is Congress has been acting out and called upon to raise the debt limit since 1960. Over 78 separate times, they have permanently risen or extended or revised the definition of our nation's debt limit. And we all know since 2008, with quantitative easing, we've literally seen just an absolute spike in our public debt. Which, if you guys haven't seen, like literally half the money in the world was printed last year. And 35% of the circulating money today was printed this year. Well, why is this a problem, Josh? And why can't they just keep doing this? Well, it's because it comes down to something known as the repo market. And this is virtually where banks get their overnight funding. If you guys didn't know, banks don't just have mountains of cash in their vaults. So what they do is they go to a broker virtually, and they go to other banks if they need cash on hand. But to obtain the cash, they need collateral, so they use treasury like bonds. Now the problem with this is the more and more cash they need, the more and more collateral is needed, and it can lead to bad collateral. Now as we print more money, and I just showed you our debt continues to rise, the problem is when COVID hit, the feds literally suspended the amount of collateral you need to zero for this cash. Meaning for every dollar you deposited, the bank didn't need any collateral to hold. And for a long time they did this, however the suspension just ended in March. And this is where it gets ugly. So just like I mentioned on how banks go to a repo market to get cash, well, when they need the opposite, when they need collateral, they go to the reverse repo. And since the feds aren't messing with taper rates or interest rates, the banks are going to this reverse repo and absolutely sending it through the roof, which in return makes their collateral more and more worthless, which is how we saw a lot of banks go under back in 2008's financial crisis. Now, since the feds have come out and said they're not going to mess with rates until 2022 or even 2023, the feds are going to absorb all of this financial debt from our financial institutions and come in and save the day by adding more uncollateralized cash to the market. And as they continue to bail out all of these banks and financial institutions, it continues to give them more and more and more power, ultimately making our entire economy rely on the Federal Reserve. This is why we see things known as taper tantrums. As soon as the Federal Reserve stops printing money, the economy panics and starts to sell off. Now, 3 minutes was not enough to explain all this. So follow so you can learn more about crypto as it's a hedge against inflation.